All right. Good morning, everyone. Morning for me. So today what I'm going to do is, this is kind of a continuation from my Thursday stream where we designed this little switch here. And today we want to make it interactive. So it shouldn't take too long. It's probably going to be like a 30-minute stream. But to preview, let's see how this thing looks. So the idea here is it's at a standstill. Somebody hovers over it. And when they hover, they get this sort of activity where it fills up. And then when they click, we got a little bit of draining here with a wind up for the switch to click on. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to put some interactivity in here. I did convert this into an HTML5 canvas document type because it's a lot easier to write code for that. And it's going to be less scary than if we were using ActionScript 3 to write our code. Plus, with ActionScript, some of the target platforms are a bit more limited in terms of interactivity at this point. And with HTML5 Canvas, you can use that just about anywhere. So any web browser whatsoever should be able to run this particular little switch. So what we're going to do, first of all, I like to, especially if I'm doing some like navigation in the timeline via code, I like to add labels. So I'm going to add a layer. Just name it labels. And this is going to be the holding pattern here. And then we're going to go to this point. So we'll add a new keyframe here. And in the properties panel, we can add a frame label for this. And that way we can tell the code, like, when you detect this sort of interaction, I want you to go to this label. And then we don't have to remember specific frame numbers or anything like that. And if you change the frames around, the labels will stay because they don't change. So I'm going to name this one boil, for lack of a better term for this action. The first one, I got to put hold on there, or rest, something like that. And then right about here, we'll switch to drain. And yeah, so we got 3 different labels. We've got our hold state here. When somebody hovers, we want to enact this boil state. And actually, it might be cool if when we write our code, if we keep sending the timeline back and forth here, so it does like continue to boil like this. That might be fun. Then we have our drain state where it switches over. All right, let's lock that down. Next thing I need is an actions layer. So I'm going to put in that new layer. Actions. So the actions layer, if you've never used Animate before, when you're doing code inside of here, there's different ways to do it. The most simple and straightforward way is to bind code to keyframes on the timeline. So just like you bind assets to keyframes, you can bind little snippets of code to keyframes as well. So that's kind of what we're going to do here. It's something that you'll see all over the place when you look at Animate tutorials. And even like really old Flash tutorials will have stuff like this too. So let's go ahead and start thinking where we want to inject code. So here we're going to put a little hold on this first one. So I'm going to select that keyframe, go to Window, and find our actions. And there we go. We've got our actions panel. And from here, I just want to say this dot stop. So all we're going to do is stop the timeline right there. That's going to stop the playhead right there until something else happens. We also want to do that way at the end. So I'm going to put a new keyframe at the end here. And just paste in this stop there as well. You'll notice my actions panel, I actually get in this root scene here, I can see I have actions at frame 1 and at frame 90. And I've got a little navigator along the side here, which makes it pretty fun to be able to just like skip around between the different pieces of code. All right, so let's go back to frame 1. And the next thing we want to do is actually go through and add a little event listener to listen for both a triggering event for boil and also for drain. And we're going to do this using the actions wizard. This is a way to assemble your code in sort of like through a UI. So I'm going to click add using wizard here. And what we want to do is go to frame, label, and play. So we select an action for step 1. We want to go to frame, label, boil, and play. And which timeline do we want? Do we want the main timeline? Do we want some kind of internal timeline for a movie clip symbol or something like that? No, we just want this main timeline here. And you can see up here, it's starting to write the code for us, and it gives us a little prompt. It's like, you know, what's the name of the label you want to go to? I want to go to boil. Next. So the triggering event. So here's here's something I need to do. I can't actually do this yet. Let's cancel out of there and collapse this. So what I need to do is actually make these different objects something I can click. Right now, they're just shapes. So we've got our slider here, and we've also got our kind of inside area. I'm just going to do everything on the little slider, and that's a circle. You can see this is a movie clip symbol already from the last time we were working with this, but I need to give it an instance name so that we can address it through code. So I'm going to give this an instance name of slider, and this is a lowercase s. That matters quite a bit when you're dealing with code. And that's all we need to do. So now I can go back into my actions panel on frame 1, go back into my wizard, and look for go to frame, label, and play once again on which object to apply the action. So you can see now slider shows up too, as well as this timeline. So let's click this timeline once again and click in boil, just like last time. We just type that in and hit next. And now that we've got something that I can interact with, we get more options here for the triggering event at step 2. So if I look down here, I've got double click, mouse out, mouse over. So mouse over would be sort of like my mouse hover event. That is what I want. And then what object do I want to bind the triggering event to? That would be my slider. And let's go ahead and finish an add. So you can see once we're out of the actions wizard, it's added a bunch of code for us. So it's enabling mouse over onto the stage. And you can see here 3 is the number of times the event should be triggered. So it's going to be listening for mouse over events. If you don't have this, you won't be able to have an actual mouse over event on anything. So here we bind mouse over to slider, and we say when that happens, go to and play boil. So what we're going to do here is kind of test this out at this point. And it's not going to be finished yet, but we do want to test it out. Let's see. So I'm going to just go here and hit the test movie button, because you have to actually test it in the browser when you're using HTML5 Canvas in order to see if it works correctly or not. All right. So we got some placement issues here. Oops. Well, it did work. We got some issues design-wise that I would need to take care of here with some of our filters. They're looking pretty rough, but maybe I'll just take them off for now. But what we do have is if I hover over the slider, sure enough, it goes through everything. But, you know, it goes through everything. It goes through the entire timeline because it hits boil and then just keeps playing. So we need to put some more stuff on here to make it a little better. And one of those things is going to be, let's see. I'm going to put a new label in here. New keyframe with a new label called repeater. And then over here, I'm going to put I'm going to put a little keyframe into my actions layer because we want a little bit of code to send this back to repeater, and it'll just play in a loop until something happens. So let's go ahead and open up that actions panel again. And here we are at frame 53. We're going to add using wizard. And what I want to do is go to frame label and play once again. This timeline, repeater. Hit next. With this frame. So what with this frame means is that every time the playhead hits this frame right here with that code on it, it's going to be sent back to repeater and play again, play again, play again. So we're going to get that repetition. We're also going to want a mouse out. So when you leave, when you mouse out from slider, we want it to actually stop as well. So let's go ahead and actually, let's just remove some of these filters because they look so bad in HTML5 canvas. You know, they look fine in, let's see which one's which here. Yeah, let's just turn them off. We'll have that glow filter. Well, maybe we'll turn that off too. I don't know. They're looking so janky. I mean, I could go ahead and change these to make them a little bit nicer looking. But of course, the point for today is not design. It is more it's more on the code, so I don't want to get too carried away with this stuff. There we go. We'll make some adjustments. Maybe that'll look a little bit better inside the browser. And this is one of the really sad things about, you know, the current state of like development and everything when it comes to, you know, oh, hello, Sean. Good day to you too. Thanks for watching. I mean, this is a perfect example of, you know, the difference between doing something in a proprietary engine like Flash Player, where you've got like perfect replication all over the place of all these different creative options, and then going to, you know, a standard like HTML5 canvas, which, yeah, it works fine most of the time, but, you know, you're no longer in control of how things are actually rendered. It's all up to specific browsers and implementations and everything. And that's fine for HTML, but, you know, when it comes to something like the canvas element and creative stuff like this, it's just a bummer to have to jump through these kind of hoops. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, we're going our repeater here, but I also want to go back to frame 1, and I want to add a mouse out. So I'm going to put my cursor way down at the bottom again, add using wizard. And what we want to do here is add another listener. And this is going to actually just, well, what should this do? I mean, maybe on mouse out, it just goes to a frame and stops. I'm not really sure. Because I don't have like a way for this thing to drain out right now that's animated, so I'd have to animate that first. But maybe what we would do is just stop it. What frame is this? This is frame 53. So maybe in that case, we'll just go to frame 53 and stop. So go to frame number and stop this timeline 53. And for this, we're going to go on mouse out. So when the mouse leaves slider, we're going to stop that action. All right, so let's see how those two things work. And it still kind of looks awful right there. And my mouse out doesn't seem to be working. The repeat is working for sure. We can see that right there. It's repeating. So let's do that again. Mouse out, it fills up and repeats. However, as I do a mouse out, it's not actually stopping, unfortunately. You know, to troubleshoot stuff like this too, you can always inspect and see in the console if there's any errors. You can see here there aren't any errors, so it's not actually something wrong that I did in terms of the code. It's just something's conflicting with it. So, Oh, interesting. So it looks like my code actually got overwritten. Oh, no, it didn't. Check that out. So I'm on frame 53 still, which that code does not belong on frame 53. It belongs on frame 1. I don't know why it added it to that frame, but there we go. So now on frame 1, we've got our stop action. We've got our mouse over, which goes to boil, which then gets repeated. And we have our mouse out, which we say go to and stop 53. All right, that may make a difference. 53 just goes to repeater and 90 goes to stop. Let's try that again. All right, so roll over, fills up, it repeats. Oh, there we go. And it stops when we go off. So what I'd really want to do, instead of having it stop right there, I'd actually have it drain. And, you know, to have it drain, what we would need to do, let's move that guy back over there, is we'd have to extend this a bit. And, you know, we could copy this out and actually have a draining action. And we've got drain right here, which I was gonna use for something different, but we don't really need to. Let's actually make that happen. Why not? I'm gonna move these fellows over here. And I'm gonna put a new one in here. Let's add some frames. I need extra frames to fit this. There we go. So for drain, I'm actually going to copy these animation right here. So I'm going to copy those frames that I selected. And then here at drain, on that boil layer, I want to paste and overwrite. So I'm going to right click, paste and overwrite frames. There we go. And what I also want to do, I don't know why I added this little frame. I think that's a little bug I heard about. Let's clear that keyframe. What I also want to do is reverse these frames because I want it to drain down. Let's right click. And reverse frames. That takes all my keyframes and completely reverses them. So now on drain, whoop, goes back down. So what we're going to have here, let's check our actions once again. So on mouse out, we don't want to go to and stop on 53 anymore. What we want to do is go to and play drain. So we can always just edit this just like that. All right. And finally, what we want to have happen is we need to get a little trigger so that the switch goes on. So I'm just going to name this switch. First, I need to add a keyframe right there in my labels, and then add a label through my frame properties. Call it switch, toggle, whatever you might want. And hey, I see there's some more people here. Welcome. Hope you're enjoying a bit of the stream here. And yeah, this is going to be the actual switch part where it drains and then goes back up there. And actually, I mean, for the draining here, let's make that actually a little less complicated. So when we mouse out, it'll be quicker. And then when we switch on, or switch on, that drains there as well, and it switches. So another thing we need after it drains, we also need to have a keyframe here on that actions layer, because we want to put a stop action to stop that guy from moving on. All right, so the last thing we need to do is send that to switch. And this is actually going to be way back on frame 1. All right, we've got our mouse over, our mouse out. Now we can add down here using the wizard. We can go through and, go to frame label and play once again. We're going to play this timeline. We're going to play switch. Next. And we want it to switch on a mouse click. So when somebody clicks slider, we want it to jump across the timeline to the point where it's going to switch on, and we want to play that, finish and add. All right, so it is on the right frame, frame 1, perfect. Let's go ahead and play this, check it out once again. All right, so here's my switch. And again, for those who just came in, I know the filters are like really shoddy looking inside of here. That's something we would have to fix later. I'm thinking about just disabling them altogether. But anyway, so it holds here. We hover over, and it fills up and repeats that little loop that's doing that little kind of tap dance at the top there. And then when we go out, there we go. It drains. Zoop. And if we click, it drains and goes up. So something that still isn't working is it needs to stop. I'm not sure why it didn't stop right there, because I do have a stop action. Oh, I'm going to have to remove some listeners because obviously when I mouse out, it's always going to jump to that particular point. Unless I keep my mouse right there. So it does stop. It's because of that mouse out that I have on there. See, when I mouse out from the slider right here, it does it again. But yeah, I don't want to go too deep into it, and it is still pretty early. But actually, before we go on, let's actually remove all these filters. because they worked when this was using the native platform that we started with last Thursday, but it just does not work when it comes to the HTML5 Canvas stuff. Filters just aren't that great inside of Canvas. That's just how it is. You just have to deal with it. Let's have a look at that now. Yeah, so that looks a lot cleaner. All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, just as I thought. It was about 25-minute stream, so not that long. And yeah, we were able to make this little guy interactive and fix up a couple of things around the filters that were on there from before, which I liked. However, they obviously weren't all that great for this particular process. So yeah, we added frame labels. We added an actions layer with different pieces of code through the actions wizard in order to jump around the timeline to different states of our micro animation. And if we wanted to, we could package this up as a little asset and distribute it. Yeah, we could take all of these layers and, make a little unified toggle switch movie clip. And then we could drag instances out wherever we wanted. Pretty cool. Yeah, I'm wondering if I can actually, if we start from scratch, you can see here like HTML5 Canvas definitely doesn't have as many nice filters, right? And when it comes to blend modes as well, you're not going to have as many blend modes either. You can see a lot of them are disabled here. But it's a capable platform otherwise. So let's see if I can get anything nice out of here with this filter effect. So if I put a glow back on here, kind of like I had it before. See, one of the problems with HTML5 Canvas and using filters, is a bunch of this stuff is disabled. So quality is always going to be low. You can never have medium or high quality. And I kind of find, traditionally, ever since Macromedia Flash 8, I think it was, when, filters were first introduced, low is good for like really weak CPUs. But I always like to have it on medium at least. Medium would make such a big difference from low. But yeah, we don't have that luxury anymore. It really is almost as if we've sort of gone backward in time here to a less capable era, which is sad for everyone. But yeah, so that filter looks pretty good. You just have to be careful. I mean, I would say, like inside of HTML5 Canvas, if you've already got stuff created, I think it probably makes a lot of sense to actually just go through and just redo any filters that you would have had in something else, because as you can see, it works out okay that way. Anyway, that's it for me today. I am going to be streaming again on Thursday evening, so have a look for that. And thank you. Have a nice day and a nice weekend, everyone.